Bharat ji, are you there?
Yes, sir, I am here. Can you see me?
Yeah, no. So I think we are already 5:04. So let's start the session. Before starting the session, I'll just give a brief introduction about our association. So I can see many new members here. So just to give them a background about our association. So basically, Risk Management Association is a global body dedicated to education, research, and development in the field of risk management. So we formed this body long back in the year 1992, but we were doing some publishing bulletin and doing background work. But post COVID, it got a lot of traction as the whole world started to see the witness the need of risk management in day-to-day business operation and uh, for the long-term sustenance of the business. So just to give a brief so the basic objective of our association is to create a common platform for risk professionals, people from industry, from maybe from insurance, banking, corporate, to identify the new trends in the risk management profession and how we can make this profession more useful and which can be used as a skill development also for the people employed in the industry. So this association is governed by a council and supported by industry experts who are from banking, insurance, corporate. And we have a lot of subject matter experts from the industry who are associated with us. So we do a lot of training programs and we launched an online course on risk management back in 2020. And this is a 30-hour, 4 months program. And we had around enrollment from 7 countries in this program. And we keep on organizing regular seminars and workshops. And besides, we regularly organize webinars also on different topics. So usually we are planning to organize webinars on every second and fourth Saturday. So we had an technical paper writing contest also. So for the current year, we'll be launching soon. And we also publish a bulletin for members, which covers the latest development in the insurance field. And we are also collaborating with various professional bodies in the world. So these are few sessions which we have organized. So this list is not exhaustive. There are much more sessions we have organized. So we have tie-up with Nepal, Bangladesh, in Middle East with Chartered Insurance Institute. So we are doing a lot of training sessions in Bangladesh, Nepal, and other countries. So here is a list of our governing council members. Some of our experts, advisory council members who have been in CEO position or very good profiles. Some RMI industry experts associated with us. There's a detail of course that we are conducting online. So basically our today's session is on implementing cyber security guidelines and cyber security. So as you all know, implementing cyber security in any organization can be quite challenging. So we thought of organizing a session where some of the best practices can be discussed, which must be observed while implementing cyber security guidelines in any company. So today I would like to invite Mr. Bharat D Sarawgee for the session. Before handing over the session, I'd just like to give a brief intro about him. Mr. Bharat is a fellow member of Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, and he has a number of diploma and certifications, which includes diploma in information system audit, certificate in International Finance Reporting Standard as a forensic accountant. And he has 18-year experience in cybersecurity audit. He's also the member of Investor Grievance Redressal Committee, Bombay Stock Exchange. And he's a regular speaker on cybersecurity, cyber hygiene, and also in NRI taxation. So once we complete the session, at the end, we can have a question and answer round. So over to you, Bharatji, to take it forward.
Thank you so much, Rakeshi. Thank you, Risk Management Association of India, for giving me this opportunity. I'm very glad to be here and present this deliberation. Yeah. Please allow me to share my screen.
Yeah, you can share.
Please confirm if you can see my screen fully.
Yeah, we can see.
Yeah. You see, the objective of having this session is basically giving you an overview of how do we implement cybersecurity in our organization. What are the guidelines given by various regulatory body? Regulatory body could be IRDAI, SEBI, RBI, and any other bodies which govern the organization. And what are the best practices internationally followed when we come about implementing cybersecurity and cyber resilience. So I'll try to cover most of the points which are required. We need to understand why are we implementing cybersecurity. That is also very important. You see, the purpose is to mitigate all kind of cyber risk. There are various kind of cyber threats. I will take you to that slide also. I will try to give you a quick glimpse of what kind of cyber threats are there. Then how do we prevent data breaches? How we protect our customer data, personal information data of various customers or our family members? How we protect the customer trust? In case the data get breached, the trust of the customer also get breached. And there are various regulatory compliances also. The IRDA has mandated all the insurance brokers to have a proper cybersecurity in place and to get the cyber audit done. The SEBI has also mandated since last 3 years for all the stockbrokers to have a cybersecurity audit done. So these are all regulatory compliances. And furthermore, to survive in this kind of cyber attack, it is very important to implement proper best practices so that the business can continue to give the services. So this is the main objective of implementing cybersecurity. I'll try to give a comprehensive plan. How do we cover the cybersecurity and mitigate the cyber risk? Let us try to understand what are our different kind of cyber threats. We'll start with phishing. You see, 95% of any attack in any organization, it is done through you, me, and our employees. It is not done through the system directly. So phishing is a very, very important threat every organization face. Phishing is basically getting all those kind of emails, messages, text messages, WhatsApp messages, where they try to give you some kind of they try to induce you to get into some kind of activity by offering you a lottery ticket, a good job in a very good organization, or some coupons or some other kind of benefits. So these are all phishing attacks, and we need to understand that phishing can be avoided only through proper awareness and training. If we give proper training to our employees, if we train ourselves and give training to all our employees, there should not be any exception. So once we have a proper training to how to deal with phishing, we can absolutely mitigate this risk. We cannot totally avoid, but we can mitigate this risk. Similarly, viruses, you must be aware viruses are being here since last 25 years, I believe. So viruses is basically a kind of software, a particular tool which get run into your system and which steals data, which alters data, or which basically delete all your data. DDoS attack. DDoS is a distributed denial of attack services. These are basically on the website. Like suddenly you see your website has become very slow or your website is not responding. The hacker do a distributed denial of service attack in your website. Data on stolen device. There could be scenario where your mobile phone has been lost or your laptop has been stolen. So that could be also a big threat. That is again a part of cyber threat. There are organized hackers. We are all aware that there are certain countries which give a lot of protection to hackers, like China, Russia. They are doing a state level terrorism through hacking. So there could be a potential in future. We can see that a war can happen through hacking only. So these are all kind of cyber threats. We get a lot of links through emails. We get emails, random emails from person where we have to click on the link, where they ask you to click on the link. So these are, again, the moment you click on the link, a certain software get installed in your system and your entire computer, your mobile phone get compromised. Similarly, we have social media malwares. You have once you log into Facebook or Twitter, you see a lot of messages are coming which induce you to click on the links. So these are also social media malwares, and they again create your computer compromise. There could be malicious insiders, like certain people have placed a particular employee in your organization, your competitor has placed a particular employee in your organization to give them secret information. So these are called malicious insiders. Untrained employees. You see, as I mentioned in the first, like the training of employees, creating awareness is the most important tool, most important thing for any organization to mitigate the cyber risk. So untrained employees are very much a cyber threat. If an employee is not being properly trained how to handle a phishing mail or a spam mail, he clicks here and there and the entire office gets compromised. Then unauthorized access. There could be a scenario where you have given a very simple password and the system got unauthorized access. Then you have automated cyber attack. You see, there are ransomware attack. Now, what we are hearing, that ransomware is coming as a service, just like a SaaS model. There is something called a RAS model, ransomware as a service. So there are certain people who take ransomware to attack on the competitors. So they pass on certain employees' information and they want the company information. So there could be an automated cyber attack also. And poor password management. Like we have seen cases where the passwords are very, very simple, like Ram123, Balaji123. These are the common password used in India. And in most of the logins, they use a similar kind of password. So a password should always be a difficult password, an alphanumeric password with minimum 8 to 10 characters. So these are the things. First, we need to understand what are different kinds of cyber threats. Once we understand the different kind of cyber threats, it is easy to tackle them and to mitigate the risk. Why is there a sudden surge in cyber fraud? Post-COVID, still a lot of people are, mainly the IT team, IT people are still working from home in many countries, in Singapore, in Malaysia, in many countries, people are still working from home and they prefer to work from home. And once you work from home, your system, basically you are using your home system. And there are a lot of software applications are downloaded in your system. Your kids also use that system. So ultimately the kids system is not as secured as in your office. We do a lot of e-meetings. Once we do a lot of e-meetings, a lot of information, confidential information are shared in the screen. So this has led to surge in cyber fraud. We do a lot of downloads everywhere. We do a lot of downloads. We click here and there. There's a sudden surge in huge online transactions, whether it is a UPI transaction, whether it's an online NEFT, RTGS. So we go to the computer, we click and we make payments. So the huge surge in online transaction also. And this has attracted a lot of hackers to hack your machine, to compromise on your net banking and to steal money from that. And there has been huge surge in social media activities. A lot of people have joined LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. So all these have contributed in surge in cyber fraud. So as an organization, you see, there are basically 6 steps to initiate a cybersecurity planning, to initiate a cybersecurity process. The first step is basically identification and protection. You identify all your critical assets in an organization. A critical asset could be anything, could be a computer, your design, your employees' information, your supplier information, your employee data, your personal information. These are all critical information. In an insurance company, I believe critical informations are customers' personal information with regard to their Aadhaar, their PAN number, their bank details, or their medical information. Are they having any issues? So these are all absolutely very, very critical information. So you need to identify in any organization what are the critical assets are there in your organization and how do you protect it. The second step is how do you monitor all kind of activities which is happening in your organization with regard to outside whether there is any kind of attack is happening. So there are certain process tools where we can monitor those activities, and through proper monitoring we detect an incident to happen. Like there are firewalls. We install hardware, proper firewalls in our organization, and once we see the logs through monitoring, we can detect, we can apprehend that this kind of attack may happen to this particular port or this particular machine. So second step, again, very important, monitoring and detection. Then the third step is response and recovery. This is basically a part of resilience plan. So the first part is cybersecurity, and the third part, first two part are cybersecurity part, and the third part is cyber resilience. So how do you respond to an attack? Who are the people who will respond to your attack? What is your standard operating procedure in case of an attack, a ransomware attack happens? Then how quickly you will recover from that attack? All these are very, very important to understand. We should have a proper planning. I give you one example. Recently, there was a ransomware attack on SpiceJet, and the entire system got compromised in the sense that the system got locked. There was a huge operation delay. The flight got cancelled. The people were not able to make tickets for their journey, and the accounts department could not function. They could not issue the result to the exchanges. So the kind of crippling effects come when a ransomware attack comes. It only, you only realize when you lose something. So it is a time for us, everyone for us, we should learn from all these examples rather than after getting an experience, then we learn. So response and recovery, again, a part of policy where there's a proper plan. Who are the people who will be responsible when there's an attack? How do we handle it? And how do we quickly recover as a part of business continuity? Fourth step is sharing of information. Sharing of information comes to like you sharing any kind of incident happening in your organization or attack happening, you share it with the regulatory body like SEBI, the exchanges, NSE, BSE, or IRDI. And this one more important body has come, which is CERTAIN, Computer Emergency Risk Team of India. It's a very important organization which deals with all kinds of cybersecurity incident and frauds. Say on a regular basis, they keep on releasing different kind of advisories also, and they have made it mandatory that the moment any organization have any kind of incident, I'll take you to the incident reporting process also, and what kind of incidents need to be reported. They have made it mandatory that any organization, whether it is listed company or an MSME or an insurance broker, a financial intermediary, a bank or a government institution, they have to report any incident within 6 hours from happening. If they don't report it, there are penal provisions also. The fifth step is training and education. You see, I'm glad the Risk Management Association has taken this initiative to train the members. Training is basically, you see that the cyber incidents are also evolving day by day. The hackers are becoming more smarter day by day. So the training and education has also need to be in a very, very regular basis. The employees, the vendors, the employees' families all need to be properly trained when dealing with any kind of phishing mails or spam mails. They should be properly educated. You see, all these kind of attacks can be mitigated mainly through training, education, and awareness. Once we are able to do that, I'm sure a lot of problem gets solved. And the last part could be periodic audit of your organization with regard to cybersecurity. How have you performed? What are the gaps? And how do you take it forward? So let us start with cybersecurity and cyber resilience policy. You see, this is the first step towards. It is about preparing a document where you write what are the different kind of policies you have. You make a proper plan. Who is your CSO? You appoint a CSO. A CSO is a Chief Information Security Officer. You can designate anyone. It is not necessary that it has to come from an IT background. The person need to learn. An IT background person is always preferable. So there has to be a particular person who understands systems, who understands little bit of technology, and you appoint a person, he take in charge, he overall review, make a plan, the cybersecurity plan for the organization, he review it regularly with his team, and then enhance it as per the future threats. The cybersecurity policy need to be very, very dynamic, because you see, the organization need to make a dynamic policy, because this is ever evolving cyber threats. Every time you see a new kind of threat is coming. So your policies should also be dynamic in nature. And your policy should also consider all kind of future cyber threats. And it must be aligned with industry best practices. You see, the SEBI has given a different kind of guidelines for stockbrokers. Similarly, IRDA has given a different kind of guidelines for insurance brokers. So these need to be aligned with the industry best practices. The second most important step is data classification. In an insurance broking company or in a stock broking company, the client data is very, very important and critical. You have a lot of information of your client. So there has to be a proper classification of data which you carry. So data can be classified into 4 different levels: a confidential data, a restricted data, internal data, and a public data. A public data is basically a data which is available in the public domain. So you have to be least careful for all those data. But with regard to any confidential, restricted data, you have to have separate measures. How do we control those data? How do we store that data? How we send those kind of data? How do we label it? How do we transfer it? And how do we dispose it? So when you must have separate folders for confidential data. A confidential data folder should be password protected or encrypted. So even if there is an attack in your system, if the folder is confidential, it cannot be opened by the attacker because it's a password protected. So all these steps need to be taken. Then there are regulatory, you need to align yourself with the regulatory requirement also with regard to data. Like I give you one example. Whenever you receive a contract note from a stockbroker, you see, when you open that contract note, you have to give a password. And normally the password are PAN number. So it's a password protected file. It's a very, very important sensitive file. If you open it, a lot of information are there of yours. Similarly, when you are sending any data, any confidential data, there are guidelines by IRDA that the subject matter should be confidential. It should be sent via proper email, and it should be sent through encryption modules. So these are the standards, these are the best practices we follow when we classify a data. So classification, as I mentioned, could be confidential, restricted, internal, and public. So internal data could be you are sharing data within the organization, and that they have not much of importance. A particular performance report of an employee, that could be an internal data. A restricted data is lower than the confidential data, but again, it is restricted. It may cause a harm to the person, to the organization if it is leaked outside. And there should be proper control who are accessing those data. It should not be that any kind of data is available to all your employees. A confidential data should be available to your top management, where there is a need to know, the least privilege access is there, the segregation of duties are there, and individual accountability are there. For that reason only, this data classification has come. Asset management. Or an organization should have a proper inventory list of all its assets. All assets mean an asset could be in hardware, software, data, photographs, vendor information, a service level agreement. So all these comes under assets, and they should have a proper list, a proper Excel file where it should have details of the configuration of the assets, when it was purchased, when it was upgraded, who is the custodian of this asset, who is the owner of this asset, and when was the last patch was updated for this asset, and how are you, or if there is an old asset, how have you disposed it. So these kind of information should be there in any organization. If there is an attack, you according to the criticality of that assets, you basically give more importance, more security to those assets. So this is again a very important part of a cybersecurity planning, a cybersecurity best practices, to have a proper inventory list of all your assets with configurations. Further, your assets should be tracked and disposed of properly. There could be there could be a hard disk where a lot of sensitive information there, and you are no longer using that hardware or a hard disk. You want to dispose it. So there has to be a proper process to dispose it. How you dispose it? You basically purge the hard disk or you break it, then you dispose it. If for certain, suppose you have formatted that hard disk, there are a lot of softwares where you can unformat it. So your information can again be cracked by someone else or a hacker. So it is important to have a proper process to dispose it also. Then there's something called vulnerability assessment. You need to do a regularly vulnerability assessment for all your critical hardwares, critical softwares, machines, that how vulnerable are these assets? What are the vulnerability points, and what actions you take to remove that vulnerabilities? Access control. You see, there are many organizations who are not aware what kind of access are given to their employees. And when their employees leave, they are in a big fix. And it sometimes happens that after a year, an employee is able to log into the email of the company and steal a lot of data, a lot of critical files information. So there has to be a proper access control. What we suggest to our client, to make an employee-wide list, what access given to those employees. The day the employee leave the organization, when you see there's a table, you can immediately disable all the logins to them. You can change the password and remove the access of those employees. For that reason, the access control is the proper list of this access control is very, very important. You should periodically review the access control, whether this employee needs that access or not. Suppose a person is into operation and he has the access of the income tax website password. So there is no need for that person to have that income tax website password. So there has to be a proper policy, proper process. Why do that person need that? What kind of access? So this has to be also planned properly, and access control policy should be there. And we believe it should be reviewed on a very, very periodical basis. And there has to be a password policy for any kind of access. Further, there could be scenario where we need to give third-party access also. Like if a vendor is coming, you give access to a particular computer, a particular system. So the moment that work is completed, you immediately remove the access. There could be a scenario that you have downloaded a TeamViewer or any desk, and that person is, you have given an automated access to that person. And after that work is complete, that person is still able to log into your system. So there has to be a proper access control, and that also comes under a policy only. Human resource security policy. How are you securing your human resource? Human resource include your employees, your contractors, your third-party vendors, your clients, your suppliers. So when you are hiring a person, when you are hiring an employee, what kind of background you are checking, whether you are doing a proper awareness training to them. So these are all personal security. Then how are you protecting your data of your employees, your customers? You see, for any IT organization, information technology companies, the employee data and the customer data are the most important data. So if your employee data has been compromised, some other person looks into it, he can approach that employee and poach that employee. So data protection of employees and customers are also very important. How do you secure those? Similarly, how you manage the user accounts of your employees, as I discussed in the access control. So I believe many of the participants are insurance brokers, Now they are developing ISNP applications also, and they want to buy any software, any offshore softwares also for their back office. So we should have a policy how basically you acquire a software. So if you acquire a software, what kind of security process you follow, and like access the organization procedure to secure software hardware acquisition to avoid vulnerabilities. Suppose I go and buy a software, an optional software, a ready-made software. You can call it a white label software. So the first thing I would want a proper VAPT report of that application. I would request kindly share a cybersecurity report, a third part, a GDPR report for that particular application. So an organization should have all these kind of policies when they are buying a software or when they are acquiring a software. Similarly, when they are developing a software, proper process need to be followed for security threats. Like I have done many cases where the ISNP have made a web application and a mobile application, and it has come to us for testing, and we find a lot of bugs, a lot of security bugs. Anybody can access, anybody can get into a lot of information from the servers. So these are all security bugs. So a proper audit need to be done, a VAPT audit need to be done, a third-party confirmation need to be done when you develop a software. And before getting into a production mode, before deploying that software for public, you should do a proper testing also, that the software is behaving properly as per the objective. So information system acquisition and development policy, again, a very important policy for every organization. System maintenance. You see, many of the attacks happen through the Windows are not updated, the antivirus are not updated. You have a lot of third-party softwares which are not updated to the latest version. There could be a scenario where you have bought a firewall, and the firewall is having a very old firmware. Firmware is basically an inbuilt software in a firewall, or a network switch. They also have a firmware. So all these things need to be updated to the latest version. So there should be a proper policy. How do you maintain your system? So like there has to be a scheduled maintenance for in your organization, that okay, every 4 Saturday we update all our softwares, we update all our Windows, all our antivirus, and there's a process laid down. How do we update it? Vulnerability management, as I earlier discussed, vulnerability management is basically checking the vulnerability threats in your particular machine, in your firewall, in your hardware, in your software, through a particular VAPT tools or a manual tools, where we check what kind of threats are there in the system. There could be threats like there are open ports. So if there are open ports, a hacker can get into that open port. There could be exposed, the Windows software is not updated. You are having a website in WordPress. That particular module of that WordPress is not updated. It's an old version. So these are all threats. You see, all these application softwares, vendors get system updated just to come out of this vulnerability. Windows also release new updates every 15 days because they realize there are certain vulnerabilities and they issue patch update. So we need, similarly, the antivirus also issues patch updates for fighting the viruses. So there has to be a proper process how we maintain different assets and how vulnerability management is being done. How do we update the patches? Patches are basically software updation version of softwares. Similarly, change management. Change management is basically a change request has come for upgrading a software, a version being upgraded. So before you upgrade the version and put into production model for the public, there should be a process where there's a process what is the requirement of that change management, why it has been done, whether the desired result has been achieved and properly securely tested or not. Mobile security policy. you see many of us allow our employees to use mobile in offices. They use it for office purpose also. So there has to be a proper process. How do we use this mobile? There has to be a proper policy also. So which may include like if there could be a scenario where the office is giving office mobile to the employees and they are using for applications. I give you one example. Last week I called the Geo guy in my office for a new SIM card. There was no paper involved. He opened his mobile. He logged into an application through his mobile and did all these things. Suppose that mobile get lost. So what Jio will do so that there is no compromise on that mobile or data? They have a process of remotely wiping that entire mobile data. So we should also have a policy where there's an option to wipe out the entire data of the mobile in case there's a mobile theft or it has been missed. Similarly, in an office mobile, you should not allow your employees to download any kind of application, a social media application, a Facebook application. You see, the moment you download a Facebook application or a Twitter application, you compromise your entire mobile. There are a lot of permission they take when you are downloading that application, and they can see any kind of activity in your mobile. So your mobile get compromised. Similarly, there should be policy not to allow any kind of remote access downloads to be done in your mobile. And similarly, if you allow people to use their personal mobiles, there should be a policy that what are the minimum usage of those personal mobile for office work. So your organization does not get compromised. Change control, I think I have covered in my earlier slide, where there's a change in a version and authorization. So it has to go through a proper process, and only after testing and validation, it should come to a production environment. Strong password management, very, very important part. I believe every organization should implement it ASAP. Like your password should be alphanumeric with special characters, with at least 8 to 10 characters. So it is very, very difficult for a tool to crack that password. Then we should always insist on multi-factor authentication for logging. Like multi-factor authentication is, you have a username, you give a password, and there is one OTP coming into it, or a Google authentication is there. These are called even if your password is compromised, the person will not be able to log in because it's a two-factor authentication or a multi-factor authentication. And you should keep review your password management given to employees or contractors, third parties, and it should be revoked when not in use. Every 6 months, the password should be changed. So there are a lot of policies which need to be implemented, best practices. I've just shared a few of them. So that has to be done. Incident and problem management. You see, as I mentioned, the computer emergency risk, they have given an advisory that there are certain incidents, if happens to your organization, you should immediately take the matter to your CISO. The CISO should discuss with the concerned person. They should go to the root cause analysis, why this incident has happened, what is the solution to that incident, that it should not happen in future. And if that incident is serious, comes under the eligibility qualification, then it should be reported to the regulatory body, which may include SEBI, IRDAI, RBI, or certain. And all the incidents need to be brought to the knowledge of the board of directors also. So it is important that incident should be reviewed properly, and there has to be a process where we give the response and recovery for that kind of incident. Network security, you should have a proper policy for network. How are you, what kind of controls, access you are giving for the internet to your employees, to your team members, whether there's a firewall or not, whether there's a software firewall or a hardware firewall. If there's a hardware firewall, whether two-factor authentication has been given for admin access, whether what kind of configurations are there in the firewall, whether you have intrusion detection, whether you have data leak protection in your firewall. So these are all very, very important points, important things which need to be considered when you are configuring a firewall. You should review a firewall logs where from which particular machine there are attacks are coming, which particular country the attacks are coming. So a lot of information comes into the dashboard of a firewall. So all these comes under the monitoring and detection part. So you need to properly review it. And there should be a proper policy, like what kind of social media access given in office computers. Can you go to sites which are not proper for your office? Can you access that? So you can restrict, you can block all those kind of contents also. So because a lot of malwares come from all those sites. Then wireless network security, you have a Wi-Fi router in your office. Is that Wi-Fi router without any password? Very important point. Like anybody just can walk in and get the access. So you should have a proper secure password wireless network. Then it could be a scenario where you take up a separate router for your customers who visit your office, so that they don't, even if you share the password, they don't access to your network. So these are the few best practices followed by organizations across the globe, where they don't give access to the internal firewall, internal network or internal routers. There's a separate router for customers or walk-in people. And we should review logs of these firewalls, any kind of incidents, and we should go to the root cause, why it has happened, from where it has happened, and how can we avoid this to happen in future. Cryptographic controls. Again, I mentioned it earlier that the confidential data, the restricted data need to be under proper control. They should be properly encrypted. So data could be at two places. Data could be at rest. Data could be in transit. Data could be rest means it's being stored in your server. What kind of server are we using? Is our server on cloud? There are certain database like MongoDB where it is very, very much encrypted. So it's very difficult to get into that particular server. Similarly, data in transit, when you are sending sensitive information to your client, to your other friends or any person who needs, or to your auditor, your sensitive information. So all these files, when you are sending it, it is through proper email services and it should be encrypted. Encrypted means it should be password protected. Similarly, there should be a proper encryption key management also to protect and to reduce the potential risk. Business continuity management and disaster recovery plan. My apologies for this disaster has come to twice. Basically, disaster is disaster, or double disaster. So there should be a proper process where we review the business continuity of an organization. You see, during COVID, the first lockdown, I believe most of us were in big shock. How do we continue our business? We had no idea. And slowly, we learned to put our data into cloud. People can access from their home. And slowly, we were able to continue our business. And in the second lockdown, it was not that difficult as compared to the first. So the process needs to be started. There should be a process where we keep our data, our software in a proper way, where even if the office environment is for some reason, like there's an earthquake in your city, or there's a flood in your city, there's a fire in your building, even if that happens, you are able to access your data, you are able to access your applications, and you can continue the business and you can serve your clients. So a proper process need to be reviewed for that. There has to be a proper SOP also. What are the threats? What kind of risk do we have? I give you an example of my office. There are separate machines for different kind of applications. And suddenly we felt one day that there was a fire threat in our office. And we had no option to remove our machines. That day only we decided that, okay, we'll put all our data, all our information in one secure cloud. And from now onwards, from that day onwards, we are having our information data in cloud. So even if I'm not able to physically access this office, I can access, my employees can access the data through remote options. So there has to be a proper business continuity plan, a disaster recovery plan. Again, give an example. You must have all have heard there was a ransomware attack in AIIMS. So the AIIMS got paralyzed. Delhi AIIMS got paralyzed because of the ransomware attack. How can you avoid these kind of situations? If we have a proper backup of all our applications, all our software data in a particular location, and that is also on a continuous basis. Even if there's a ransomware attack, we can immediately switch on to the new application or the remote application. So there has to be a proper process how quickly you recover from any kind of attack. So before, again, there could be a scenario where you are thinking that, okay, I'm taking a backup of all my information, important data in my pen drive. I used to remember, like, we used to take data backup in pen drive in hard disk. And when suddenly one day the machine gets shut and we start to restore that pen drive or the hard disk, we see that that pen drive is not responding, only that is not working. So it is important for us to test all those data backup also, to have a mock drill when assuming that then there is an attack, how quickly and how better we got our system back to this regular basis. So testing is very, very important. A mock testing is very, very important. 2 days back, I read an article where the Australian government has done a mock attack in its one of the most important airport in Sydney. They assume that there's a ransomware attack and that all the system of the Sydney airport is collapsed. And there are lakhs and lakhs of people. How will they handle that situation? They did an entire mock exercise. They made a plan. If there is an attack, how will they react? How the people will be handled? What kind of information will be shared to the people? How the process will flow? How the flight will take off and will land? So this is again a mock exercise, which is very, very important, which helps, just like the army do mock drills. If they don't do mock drills, when there's an actual war, the performance will be really bad. Third-party service provider. There are a lot of cases where we are taking third-party services, like the software we purchase, the vendor is coming on a regular basis when there is a bug or when we need an updation. So, I have taken a cloud platform and I need to regularly update my services obligation from them, like what kind of services they are giving. Are they suppose in our platform there's no firewall, there is no intrusion detection, and I'm not aware only. So we need to be aware about all kind of services, the service level agreement done. So when we are aware what kind of services we are taking, the vendor management, assess the organization vendor management process for third-party service provider. We need to review the security measurements. The access given to vendors should be reviewed on a regular basis. If there is no requirement for that access, it should be withdrawn immediately. And we should have an NDA, non-disclosure agreement with all the third-party vendors, where they are obliged not to disclose confidential information of our organization to anyone. Physical and environmental security. I believe most of us are doing this physical and environmental security, where we have a proper video surveillance. The server room is being logged, or there's an access control to those server rooms. There's a guard sitting outside the office with a gun. So these are all physical environment. Now the disposal process, how do we dispose our assets? As I discussed earlier, there should be a proper process to dispose our sensitive data in the hardware, in the machine stored. So all those need to be properly purged or destroyed, then only it should be disposed. Monitoring, logging, assessment, I think I have covered. We should monitor all kind of incidents through firewall log, or if there is any leakage, data leakage. So we should review it. There has to be a proper root cause analysis, why it has happened, what was the security lapse, and how quickly we can rectify it so that next time it doesn't happen. Cloud security, many of us have migrated to cloud from physical servers. So what kind of agreement we have with the cloud service provider, then what kind of access we have given to our employees, whether the access given to employees are Mac based. Mac is basically a particular machine can only access to their login. If they try to use any other system, they will not be able to log in. And when we are using an AWS account, how have we created the IAM user? Are we following the AWS security groups? So these are very important policies need to be first drafted and then implemented for any organization. I think I covered this cyber resilience also, like threat intelligence, like reviewing the firewall log. The vulnerability management is updating the hardware and the software. It's called hardening also. You basically harden the software and the hardware to the latest patch. So evaluate organizations cyber resilience testing exercise to ensure preparedness in case of event. I mentioned mock drilling exercises. You send mock phishing emails to your employees. I give you an example. Your HR is sending message, or your MD is sending message that to all the employees that there's a problem in the attendance machine on the 14th of July. So none of your attendance has been recorded. You are requested to update whether you were present on this day or not. And you ask all different kind of questions. What is your father's name? Give us your Aadhaar number, your PAN number, your mobile number, your bank detail. And you ask them. And that email has actually not come from the MD. You create a fake email ID and then send, just by skimming the name of the managing director or the HR. You see how your employees are responding. Are their employees giving all the information? So once you analyze all these trends, you will be able to understand that the employee does not understand that it was a phishing attack. And had they understand, they would have ignored it, and they could have bring this particular email to your notice. So these are all very important exercise need to be done by all the organization to understand the kind of preparedness in the event of attack. Similarly, email security. You see Google have given new features where they make it more difficult for the spammers to send you emails. So there are proper security controls are there for phishing, and for then you create a lot of awareness and training to employees how to handle phishing mails. They should look at the email address, that email address is proper or not, that is from the sender. They should check a proper spelling. Is there any grammatical error? Is there any link? Why are they asking it? So all these proper trainings need to be given when an employee is dealing with the email. Work from remote location. Again, it was a challenging time during the COVID when we all started work from remote. And at that time only, we were not aware who are the actual people who are accessing the office computers. So we need to understand, we need to have a proper planning, a proper policy that who are actually accessing your system. There could be any other person who is accessing your system instead of your employee. So to tackle those, there are various processes where on different gaps we take the videos, we take the pictures of the employee or the person who is accessing the system. There are proper secure VPN, virtual private network. Then it's a two-factor authentication. After half an hour they again need to log in. After 5 minutes of no activity, they are automatically logged out. So there are a lot of procedure where we have a secure remote work from home. So I just given few of them. Then we can have a MAC ID, like a particular computer with that MAC ID can only access to the VPN. Others will automatically not be able to access. So this is the way we secure our office environment. We help mitigate the risk of all kind of cyber threats. I'll take you to the certain guidelines. You see, can you see my screen? I'm just reading out. It is mandatory for all service providers, intermediaries, data center, government organization, corporate bodies, MSME to report cyber incident within 6 hours of their occurrence or discovery, as specified in Annexure 1 to certain has given one annexure where they mentioned that you have to report all this incident to certain. You may need to file an FIR also with the cyber cell. All these need to be done. And if you don't do it, in case of any incident, the above referred entities must furnish the detail as called by the certain. The failure to furnish the information or non-compliance with the IBIT may invite punitive action under Section 7 of 70B of the IT Act. What is 70B of the IT Act? Any service provider, intermediate, data center, body, corporate person who fails to provide the information called for or comply with the direction under Section 6 shall be punishable with an imprisonment, a term which may extend to 1 year, or with fine which may extend to 1 lakh rupees or more. So the government of India has become very, very serious with regard to all these cyber threats, cyber incidents, which is happening in the organization, and they want us to report it. The moment we report it, the government issue advisories to other organizations also. You see, this kind of incident is happening in organization. So how to stop this incident, how to avoid these kind of information. So information sharing is very, very important for any organization, for the betterment of country, for the helping country to come out of it, any kind of cyber attack as quickly as possible. So I'll try to take you to that particular notification. I'm sharing my form screen. Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
This is an incident reporting form. So certain has given advice that these are the kind of incident which any organization faces need to report to certain and to the regulatory body immediately within 6 hours. So if there's a data breach, data leak, or denial of DDoS attack, or attack on applications such as e-governance, e-commerce, a ransomware attack, a fake, you find a fake mobile application download in your computer, in your mobile phone, attack through mobile application, attack or incident after digital payment system. So these are the incident type which we need to report. And if we don't report, this is a regulatory compliance, and there's a non-compliance and there's a penal provision also. Sorry. I think I've done with my presentation. I'm just sharing my screen. Yeah. Yeah, Rakesh, I think I've done with my presentation. We can have a question answer round.
Thank you, Bharatji, for an excellent overview of the best practices in implementing cybersecurity guidelines. So I believe the participants must have found it useful. So if anybody has any question, they can unmute and ask the question. Meanwhile, I think in India, a lot of people don't use original softwares. So what can be the impact of using this softwares which are not being updated?
You see, sir, original software releases all patches, updates on a very, very regular basis. And if you are not using, your system may get compromised anytime. So that is the only main function of using an original software. The vulnerabilities are being checked by the vendors, by the software developers, and they release the updates. That is the main reason we should use original software. Even the Windows also.
I think this awareness about this cyber attack must also be there, and we should regularly conduct such programs, because what happens unless there is an attack, nobody wants to give much focus on it. Only when they get attacked or there some problem happens, they think about cyber security. So unless mandated by regulatory bodies, we should do it ourselves as a basic good governing principle that we should be adept in having a good plan for the cyber security.
You see, the government is coming up with the Personal Data Protection Act also. And once that once that act is enabled, like there will be huge penalty. In GDPR, like there's a millions of dollars of penalty for the companies if there's a data breach from there and they don't report it and they don't handle it properly. So very soon we'll see that light, that there's a Data Protection Act coming.
And with technology developing so fast, I think data protection would be a big challenge in coming days. And so many people using technology, and almost our life has been revolving around technology now.
Right. And you see, it is important to walk the step. You have to take small steps, but you have to walk quickly. You cannot just stay here and then see, okay, well, I'll do it later on when there is a... You see, in my experience, I've seen like people act only when there's a compliance requirement. They are not actually understanding that it is for them. It is basically a helmet. Like you are riding a scooter or a motorcycle without a helmet. The police catches you, then only you wear a helmet. But the purpose of that helmet is basically protecting you from the accident. So we need to understand. You go back 20 years back, most of us, we did not use any antivirus. Once we started having virus attack, when we lost data, then only we started using antivirus.
And unless something is mandated, we don't focus on it.
Right.
When it is mandated, as a compliance part, we are happy to do, but otherwise we don't want to go in. Maybe the companies don't want to spend on that and to employ a cybersecurity expert and maybe to get details from him. I think we have a question from Mr. Narayan Kumar. So what are the AI risks that can arise in future and how can be protected?
AI risk, you see, when you put in information to any chat GPT chat module and you put a lot of sensitive information to prepare a chart, your entire data is being collected by them. So even if you want to prepare a chart or a particular graph from chatbot, you give fake information, you give like test information, and you take the model from there, and then from that model you put the correct information. So you have to use it in a proper way. You should not give all your information in just to have a ready-made solution, and you give away all the information, sensitive information, to the AI. So you have to use it properly.
And it's still AI is evolving.
Yeah.
So it will take time to understand what impact it can have, because they are storing the data in their models and they are rebuilding on it. So it will take time, and how it works and what would be the future challenges.
Right. There will be a lot of challenges, no doubt about it. Even the hackers will be using a lot of AI.
There's one more question from Mr. Shuman. Does the ICRT code you have shown important to insurance broker? Do we need to adhere to it as an insurance broker?
Yeah, definitely we need to adhere it. ICRT, I don't understand what is ICRT. It must be certain code, CERT.
Yeah, I think it must be CRT.
So you have to adhere, you have to follow the IRDI guidelines. IRDI has issued a policy guidelines also. Then they have given a particular Excel sheet where they have given a lot of questionnaire format that you need to implement this. So that need to be taken care, and that has to be properly implemented also.
How frequent that seat needs to be updated to IRDA? Is it once in the lifetime or maybe in a
You see, I am not in I think your team only can give that. I think it's an yearly audit as of now.
Yeah, yes, yearly audit. Okay. Every year, yes. So I think most of the regulatory bodies now are mandating this sort of audit, and maybe going forward, more smaller companies also will be required to do this sort of.
I think all the insurance broker has been included. They have made different slabs, but all the brokers have been included. So what kind of monitoring? Yeah, data monitoring, not necessarily. You see, there are a lot of cloud-based applications also where they help you to monitor. There's a Cloud Watch, Cloud Metrics, where they help you to monitor the kind of data, the usage of data, if there is an issue or the alert being created. So you don't need, every time you don't need a third-party audit for that. But your system should be fully secured. It should be based on best practice model.
And I think cloud will always will be having challenges because you need to select the cloud infrastructure also properly, because you might be tempted of getting cloud storage at a very cheap price. So you need to very well select that, because might be they would be taking the data and it can be misused. So that also needs to be, and that also we need to be checked. And as you said, in terms of a mock drill, that also needs to be checked. Many times what happens, we take the cloud storage and we are just happy that everything is being stored. So mock drill, I think, is very important.
Yeah, mock drill is important. And we need to properly review the access rights given at the cloud.
Yeah, one more question, if you can just see from Mr. Devjyoti.
I don't think there is any compulsory requirement that CISO need to be ISACA certified. I'm not very sure about it, but I don't think this is a mandatory thing need to be done.
I think it should be from an expert, not CISO is not mandated, I think.
Right.
So any more questions from anybody? We are already at 5:12. So I think we had a very wonderful session, and every time learning is a first step. So as you move along, it is a compulsory process that you need to follow. It is not a one-step process. So I think we will again invite you maybe in future to give us more update on this important topic. And in fact, this disaster recovery and disaster business continuity is again a very big area which needs to be studied in detail. So thank you for this excellent session. And I wish our participants would have definitely liked it and would get some input for implementing some best practices. So thank you, Bharatji, for this wonderful session. And we'll come to you again.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you all participants for joining. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.